Hey, the title of this video is The Vanatization of American Society. The vanitization of American society. So to get you into the correct frame of mind, I need you to follow how I came up with this title and how I ended up here. So I'm going to go to an excellent Bible expositor, and if you're not familiar with him, his name is Dr. James Boyce. And Dr. Boyce will talk about why we live in a mindless society. Let's listen in to Dr. Boyce.
And materialism and the fast pace of our life, I do want to say that I think the chief cause of the mindlessness of our times is television. We live in a television culture. It's very important what happens to us as thinking or non-thinking people because of television. Let me tell you how I first got alerted to this and began thinking about it. A number of years ago now, it would be 5 or 6 years ago, Ted Koppel, who's well known from the Nightline program on television, gave a graduation address at Duke University. It was really a very impressive address for a secular person before a secular audience. Ted Koppel talked in that address about the Ten Commandments, and you may have heard somebody refer to it. One thing he said in the address is when God gave us the Ten Commandments, he gave us 10 commandments, not 10 suggestions. You ever hear that? And furthermore, he says they are the 10 commandments, not were the 10 commandments. And then he did, I think it was rather brilliant as well as courageous, he began to take the 10 commandments, especially those in the second table of the law, and apply them to the great scandals of our time. You shall not bear false witness, and he linked it up to the insider trading scandals on Wall Street involving Botsky and others, and he said, there's a command that has bearing on our culture. You shall not commit adultery. He talked about the scandals with the TV evangelists and so forth. He went down through a number of them and sort of recalled people to an ethical base. We need to rediscover ethics in our society, is what he was saying. Now, I thought that was very impressive. But what interested me most about what Koppel said is what he said in the very first sentence. Very first thing that Ted Koppel said when he stood up before this secular graduating audience is this. He said, America has been vanitized. Now, nobody knew what that meant. He was coining a word. It's the first time that the word vanitized was ever used, I suppose. And so in the next sentence, he explained what he meant. He said that's vanitized as in Vanna White. I can always tell how spiritual an audience is, whether they laugh at that. You see, spiritual ones don't laugh at all. They don't know who Vanna White is. I did not at the time know who Vanna White was, but I have watched her since. Vanna White is this very attractive blonde lady on the Wheel of Fortune game show who has this very difficult job. Vanna White stands over on one side of the game board, and the contestants call out the letters that are going to be involved in what is spelled out here, what they're trying to guess. And when they guess one of those letters, Vanna White goes around and touches it or turns it to light it up on all the places where the letter occurs. And when she gets over to this side of the game board, she claps her hands. Now, that is what Vanna White does. It's a very difficult job for which she is paid an awful lot of money and for which she is very well known. Not only is she well known, she's imitated. You know that all over the world there are televised game shows like Wheel of Fortune that have a character named Vanna White, except they give her different names. Out in Australia, I was just with some Australians and was talking to them about it. They have one out there in Australia, and her name is Adriana. She doesn't even have a last name. It just sort of adds to the mystique. And there's a girl like this in Germany, and the German version, one in France, and so on. Now, Ted Koppel called attention, first of all, to how well known, how popular Vanna White is. He said if there were a list today of the 10 most admired women in America, Vanna White would be somewhere near the top. And then he said, but isn't it interesting, on the game show, Vanna White never says a word. Now, I've noticed since she does occasionally say some things like, they're running short at the end of the program, 10 seconds short. You can hear her say to the contestant, I think you did very well today. You know, profound things like that. But at any rate, Vanna White doesn't say anything, and so Ted Koppel asked the question, how can a woman about whom we know absolutely nothing personally be so popular? And then he answered, it's because we don't know anything about her that she's so popular. She's a beautiful image on the screen into which we project our own desires. I want to tell you exactly how he said it, because he said it very well. He's talking about Vanna White. He asked the question, is she a feminist? Or every male chauvinist's dream, she's whatever you want her to be. Sister, lover, daughter, friend, never cross, non-threatening, non-judgmental to a fault. Now, why is he beginning that way? Well, he wants to talk about television, and what he wants to say is this. We think of television as being this modern communication tool that is so wonderful that all of us know more about what's going on in the world and are better informed than any people in all the ages of human history. And he says exactly the opposite is the true. It's working against knowledge, because television is not a medium that is pouring out all this information at us all the time. Rather, it's an image on the screen into which we project our desires. You see, so we're not actually learning. We're projecting our desires on the screen and having sort of a vicarious experience with what we see there. But we don't actually know who Vanna White is, and as a matter of fact, we know very little about anybody. And he's saying, that's what's happening to our society. It's bad enough that we don't know what's going on. What's even worse is we don't know what's going on. Now, that's a popular way of talking about it. I use it to get into the subject, but let me introduce a more serious study of the subject. I want to recommend some books along the way, because the way to become a thinking Christian is...
Okay, so I think we'll go now to the Ted Koppel speech. It was at Duke University. And we'll hear his commencement address, May the 10th, 1987.
This nomination has been approved by the faculty of the university and by the board of directors. Professor Thomas Kellogg, his faculty sponsor, will please escort the candidate to the podium.
R. David Thomas, entrepreneur, philanthropist, exemplar of the American dream. You have achieved success as the result of your integrity, your determination, and your deep sense of commitment to family and community. Orphaned shortly after birth, you transformed of achievement. You have become a rare representative of journalistic integrity and professionalism in commercial broadcasting. The qualifications and experience which brought you to prominence as the anchor of ABC News Nightline are impressive. With a bachelor's degree in speech from Syracuse University and a master's degree in journalism from Stanford, you quickly earned the right to report to the American public on the major events of our national life. You were at the 1964 presidential nominating conventions in Selma, Alabama, and in Vietnam. You went to China with Richard Nixon and covered 250,000 miles in the wake of Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. With such news stories as second to none, examining the strategic nuclear balance and America held hostage, ABC's nightly report on the 1979 Iran crisis, you gained a reputation as a knowledgeable commentator and student of world affairs. For your work, you have been recognized numerous times with the Emmy, a George Polk Award for Best Television Reporting, an Alfred I. DuPont Columbia University Award in Broadcast Journalism, and 4 Overseas Press Club Awards from your colleagues. Duke University is proud to honor you as well for your intellectual curiosity, your learned attitude of inquiry that eschews the sensational in favor of understanding the substantive, and your high professional standards that insist on the practice of journalism in the interests of all people. By the authority vested in me, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, and I admit you to its rights, its privileges, and its obligations. I am delighted to introduce to you a man who millions of Americans regard as the perpetrator of the most dangerous half hour in network television. Please join me in welcoming our commencement speaker, the anchor of ABC News Nightline, Ted Koppel.
Well, isn't that special? Actually, a number of you made informal suggestions as we were coming down the aisle there as to how I should begin this morning's speech. I'm going to resist the temptation to follow most of those suggestions. One of them I thought was kind of cute. Good morning, I'm Ted Koppel, and this is commencement. Before I forget, congratulations, grandparents, parents, happy Mother's Day. Congratulations to all of you. I'm going to talk to you about a phenomenon that I think is taking place in this country today. America has been vanatized. That's vanatized as in Vanna White. Wheel of Fortune's Vestal Virgin. No, I saw the same copy of Playboy you did. The young lady may or may not already have appeared on one of those ubiquitous lists of most admired Americans, but if she has not, it's only a matter of time. Through the mysterious alchemy of popular television, Miss White is roundly, indeed all but universally, adored. It seems unlikely, but lest there be among you someone who has not thrilled to the graceful ease with which Miss White glides across our television screens, permit me to tell you what she does. She turns blocks. On which blank sides are displayed to another side of the block on which a letter is displayed. She does this very well. Very fluidly, with what appears to be genuine enjoyment. She also does it mutely. Vanna says nothing. She is often seen smiling at and talking with winners at the end of the program, but we can only imagine what they are saying to each other. We don't hear Vanna. She speaks only body language, and she seems to like everything she sees. No, like is too tepid. Vanna thrills, rejoices, adores everything she sees. And therein lies her particular magic. We have no idea what or even if Vanna thinks. Is she a feminist or every male chauvinist's dream? She is whatever you want her to be. Sister, lover, daughter, friend, never cross, non-threatening, and non-judgmental to a fault. The viewer can and apparently does project 1,000 different personalities onto that charmingly neutral television image, and she accommodates them all. Even Vanna White's autobiography, an oxymoron if ever there was one, reveals only that her greatest nightmare is running out of cat food, and that one of the complexities of her job entails making proper allowance for the greater weight of the letters M and W over the letter I, for example. Once, we learn, during her earlier, less experienced days, she failed to take that heavy letter factor into proper account and broke a fingernail. I tremble to think what judgment a future anthropologist finding that book will render on our society. I tremble not out of fear that they will misjudge us, but rather that they will judge us only too accurately. For the Vanna factor has wormed its way into all too many aspects of our lives. All of us whose success is directly or indirectly a function of television are the beneficiaries of the Vanna factor. I am, for example. My mail proves it to me on a daily basis. I am increasingly driven to the conclusion that on television, neutrality or objectivity are simply perceived, or at least treated, as a form of intellectual vacuum into which the viewer's own opinion is drawn. I find myself being regarded not so much as an objective journalist, but as someone who shares most views, even those that are incompatible with one another. As in the case of Vanna White, although mercifully to a lesser degree, many of Nightline's viewers project onto me those opinions they would like me to hold, and then find me compatible. In Vanna White's case, in my own, the fostering of such illusions may be not only permissible but even necessary. We have been hired, Vanna and I, to project neutrality. The problem is that what I'm calling the Vanna factor has evolved more and more into a political and economic, even a religious necessity. On television, ambiguity is a virtue, and television these days is our most active marketplace of ideas. Let's take inventory for a moment. 60% or more of the American public, roughly 140 million people, get most or all of their news from television. Presumably some of those people can read, but approximately 60 million of our fellow citizens cannot. They are functional illiterates. For them, television is not merely the medium of choice, but of necessity. What then should we or must we conclude? Whatever your merchandise, if you want to move it in bulk, you flog it on television. Merchants trying to sell their goods, politicians.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right here. I wanted to get the idea out to you of the vanitization of American society, and that is that the television screen or computer screen or your cell phone screen projects an image. Now, what we do is we project an image back, an emotion back, in that it's like a double projection. The image of Vanna White appears, and then that stirs something inside of the individual, and that individual then projects an emotion back towards Vanna White. Now, it could be anyone else, doesn't have to be Vanna White, right? It could be Ted Koppel. Okay? It could be a comedian, Johnny Carson. Could be a movie hero, John Wayne. And so what happens is there's kind of a soul bonding between the individual viewing and the images that are projected. Now, once there's a soul bonding, in a sense, then the power of witchcraft can occur. Because the souls become knit together. Like in the Bible, it tells us about David's soul was knit together with Jonathan. And that might be an example of a good soul bonding. But there are bad soul bondings. And out of those bad soul bondings comes control. So immediately there's an interaction between the image on the screen, whether it's a Vanna White image or a Ted Koppel image, or a John Wayne image, whoever. And that creates a very powerful means of control by the projection of the image outward, and then the projection of the individual's emotion back toward the image. And now you have a soul tie or soul bonding. And once there's a bonding, then the power of the witchcraft can occur very easily. So I found this interesting and I wanted to share it with you, and I apologize for not having the best videos in terms of editing, and I have little goof ups in them and everything. But as I get my thoughts, I'd like to share them with you so they are fresh and that you too can participate in some of the things that's happening in my mind, in my soul, in my spirit. So the good news of the gospel is that we need not bind our soul to these images on screen, and that if witchcraft is employed on us, it is powerless to get into our minds if we put on the helmet of salvation. So wear the helmet of salvation, that in Jesus Christ we are saved, and you will be protected from the vanitization of society. Thank you for watching. End of video.